Our research is on the assessment of risks for Ukraine infrastructure in the conditions of war. Relevance of research is related to the fact that Russian military aggression against Ukraine, in addition to the large-scale destruction of residential and critical infrastructure facilities and disruption of the regular operation of a vast number of enterprises, led to an unprecedented deterioration in the quality of vital resources and a catastrophic ecological imbalance in the country's natural environment. The catastrophic nature of destruction of the main components of the environment due to the actions of Russian troops, the restoration of which is associated with huge costs of material financial resources, also determines the need to revise the existing methodology in Ukraine for assessing the damage to the infrastructure caused by the Russian military aggression. The purpose of the research is to analyze the regional characteristics of losses of infrastructure objects from Russian military aggression against Ukraine, to assess the risk of damage to infrastructure from artillery and missile attacks at the level of administrative regions of Ukraine. The research tasks are to assess the risks of damage to infrastructure from artillery and missile attacks at the level of administrative regions of Ukraine, to adapt data and use them to evaluate the risk of infrastructure objects according to the model used in EU countries, and to build an appropriate risk matrix of infrastructure losses from artillery and missile attacks and assess its level. The choice of research methodology is primarily due to the need to overcome the uncertainty that arises during decision-making on protecting critical infrastructure objects in war. It is also related to Ukraine's foreign policy towards European integration and the need to introduce and adapt modern EU risk assessment approaches to domestic conditions. The research considers a critical infrastructure as an asset, object, equipment, network, or system, or a part of an asset, object, equipment, or system necessary to provide essential services. Essential service means a service that is critical to the maintenance of vital societal functions, economic activity, public health and safety, or the environment. Risk is the possibility of loss or disruption caused by an incident, which can be expressed as a combination of the magnitude of such loss or disruption and the likelihood of the occurrence. An incident is considered an event that can potentially disrupt or significantly disrupt the provision of critical services. In the conditions of war, missile and artillery attacks by Russian troops, which cause the most significant losses to infrastructure objects, are considered incident. The risk can be quantified as a function of the likelihood of the occurrence of the danger, exposure, and vulnerability. At the same time, the risk of loss and damage to infrastructure facilities in the event of an incident during the year can be determined as presented here, where PTI is the likelihood of the ITH incident with losses for the infrastructure facilities of the particular region. VTI is the vulnerability of infrastructure objects to destruction or damage from the ITH incident. NTI is the number of destroyed, damage, infrastructure facilities during the ITH incident. NTI is the total number of infrastructure facilities in the region. In EU countries, it is recommended to use 5.5 risk matrix to visualize the assessment results when conducting national risk assessment for critical infrastructure. In this research, the risk of direct infrastructure losses from missile and artillery strikes at the regional level was assessed according to the data of the Kiev School of Economics and the Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Association regarding the losses of various types of infrastructure and the volume of missile and artillery shelling in the regions of Ukraine. The assessment results show that for almost all regions of the country, there is a risk of damage to the infrastructure by Russian artillery shelling. At the same time, the highest level of risk of infrastructure losses from missile and artillery fire in the regions of Ukraine is noted in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions. A high level of risk is characteristic of the Zaporizhia, Lugansk, Kherson, Chernigiv, and Mykolaiv region. The average level of risk of infrastructure losses from rocket and artillery fire is noted for the Kiev, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Odessa, and Zhytomyr regions. At the same time, the likelihood of dangerous events and the possibility of economic losses from them are calculated based on the statistical data. On this basis, the corresponding dependencies format, which was done to solve the purpose of this publication. The assessment results indicate that residential building, infrastructure facilities, the energy industry and the agricultural sector are characterized by the greatest likelihood of infrastructure losses in Ukraine. At the same time, residential buildings, infrastructure facilities, enterprise assets and industry are characterized by the highest likelihood of shelling. Considering the result obtained in the assessing the likelihood of missile and artillery attacks and losses of various types of infrastructure, the model constructed a risk matrix. It should be noted that the high risk of direct losses is typical for residential building and critical infrastructure facilities, assets of enterprises, industry, agriculture, education, and energy have an increased level of risk. Objects of the forest fund, trade, housing, and communal services, culture, tourism, sports, and transport have an average level of risk. When making management decisions regarding reducing losses of various types of infrastructure from sharing, it is evident that the primary attention should be directed precisely to preventing and reducing risk for residential buildings and objects of critical infrastructure. In the conditions of military operation and complex interactions of the main factors for formation of threats to infrastructure, an effective risk reduction process will involve the combined implementation of several scenarios, which may include strengthening their protection and duplicating their vital functions. Prospects for the further exploration in this area are mainly related to the complete estimation of losses of infrastructure objects from Russian military aggression against Ukraine, carrying out on this basis risk assessment for Ukrainian infrastructure objects of various types at the regional and national level, categorize them by types and levels of risk, and develop reasonable measures to prevent threats with large-scale negative consequences for critical infrastructure facilities. Thank you for your attention.